We recorded an episode on whether killing James Bond was a good idea or treason. And wow, it got a lot of listens and a lot of comments on Facebook. Some of the comments were in line with, hey, James Bond is just a code name, so Bond is not dead. So I thought we should settle this once and for all right now. Is James Bond a code name? The final word. Here we go. Hi, this is Dan.
And Tom.
Don't forget to like our show and review it in your podcast app and subscribe to Cracking the Code of Spy Movies. That really helps us to continue bringing fresh content to you. All right, we're going to go to the source, Ian Fleming. First, to see how Ian Fleming creates, develops, and advances his spy, James Bond, and to see if the movies picked any of this up or changed it. The name James Bond, of course, came from the ornithologist James Bond, who wrote Birds of the West Indies, which Fleming had in Jamaica. And he thought, hey, that is a nice, bland name that would be flat, uninteresting, and as ordinary as possible. And he used it. Okay, we know that elements from many people Fleming knew personally made their way into the character of James Bond.
Okay, so that's enlightening for our quest here. The character of Bond. And yes. Fleming in interviews has said as much. So that means he's talking about James Bond as a person.
Yeah, as a person, a spy. Okay, but let's look at the novel, You Only Live Twice. There's a lot going on in this story. And when you think Bond is not returning from his last mission, they published an obituary. Now, we remember in the movie the fake death of Bond and the newspaper with the headlines that British naval commander murdered with a picture of Bond. You remember that.
That obituary written in the novel is very specific about many things.
Yes.
One, we're told he was born of a Scottish father, Andrew Bond of Glencoe, and a Swiss mother, Monique Delacroix from Canton de Vaud. It goes on to say that both of his parents were killed during a climbing accident and that James Bond was taken in for a while by an aunt, Charmaine Bond. Not Blofeld, by the way. It further details that James Bond was briefly married in 1962 to Teresa, the only daughter of Marc-Ange Draco of Marseille. And that marriage ended in a tragic circumstance.
All right. We even get the epitaph here that was more or less used in the No Time to Die movie. Quote, I shall not waste my days in trying to prolong them. I shall use my time. Now, this is a shortened version of the proper function of man is to live, not to exist. I shall not waste my days in trying to prolong them. I shall use my time. And that's attributed to American author Jack London.
Okay, now we also have to remember in the novel You Only Live Twice, James Bond has amnesia, and he's still in Japan, and he thinks he's living with Kissy Suzuki. He can't remember his past or who he really is for the most part, because he's got amnesia. Jason Bourne, anybody?
Yeah. All of this sounds like James Bond was an individual person, and that his name is...
Bond. James Bond.
Okay, now, I'm going to go back to that obituary for a second. Could that be a hoax, a fabricated backstory for the agent holding the name? Mm-hmm. I mean, it could be, but usually in the spy world, the kinds of details associated with the person dying would not be published because the facts could be traced.
Right.
Now, if Bond were a code name, an obituary would defeat the entire purpose. So, all in all, it looks like James Bond was James Bond. I mean, with no ambiguity.
Well, the movies bear this out as well. Skyfall, for example, when James Bond returns to the Skyfall Lodge, his childhood home, it is his childhood home. He is recognized by Kincaid, who knew Bond very well when Bond was a child and when Bond hid in the priest hole.
James Bond.
Good God. Are you still alive?
It's nice to see you, too.
This is Kincaid. Gamekeeper here since I was a boy.
Pleased to meet you, Emma.
Mr. Kincaid.
And we see the tombstones of his parents, the same names as in the novel You Only Live Twice, Andrew Bond and Monique Delacroix. This shows one continuous identity, not a mantle, not a code name. All right.
Yeah.
Let's keep going in.
Yeah, Inspector does support the backstory to a point, that Bond's parents were killed when he was young, just
Yes.
instead of his aunt taking him in, Blofeld did.
All right, Tom, let's look at For Your Eyes Only, 1981. There's stuff in there, too.
Yeah, I mean, if we look at Bond's visit to Tracy's grave in the pre-title sequence,
Yes.
and the name on the tombstone is Tracy Bond. And the date she died, or the year, 1969, was the year of the release of On Her Majesty's Secret Service.
Yeah.
So, and that's the movie that Tracy was murdered in shortly after the marriage. So we have her name. We have the exact year of death that we saw from the earlier movie. It was 1969. So Tracy Bond appears to be a real person, and we have real facts about her here in this movie.
Yeah, that visit alone to the grave is powerful in terms of saying that James Bond was an individual person, not a codename. But look, Sherlock Holmes remains the same sharp-eyed, brilliant, logical, consulting detective, whether he's played by Basil Rathbone, Ronald Howard in the 1954 TV series, Jeremy Brett, Benedict Cumberbatch, Christopher Lee, Roger Moore even, or Johnny Lee Miller, or anyone else. It is still Sherlock Holmes.
Okay, and here we've got a variety of actors who've played James Bond. You've got Sean Connery, George Lazenby, Roger Moore, Timothy Dalton, Pierce Brosnan, and Daniel Craig so far in the On Productions movies. And we can't forget that 1967 Casino Royale spoof where we had David Niven playing James Bond, Woody Allen as Jimmy Bond, Terrence Cooper as James Bond 007, and of course, Dahlia Lavia as the detainer, who is also called 007.
Yeah. All right. Finally, don't forget that we also have Barry Nelson as Jimmy Bond in the early 1950s TV special. This is cinematic casting, not codename stuff. These actors played Holmes or Bond. Time and age has something to do with this. So there.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. George Lazenby's line in On Her Majesty's Secret Service in the pre-title sequence, when Tracy drives off leaving Bond, he says,
"This never happened to the other fella."
Is often highlighted as support for the codename theory because it means, hey, the other Bond before me had better luck, implying a continuity confusion. Codename fans look at this as a wink and a nod that James Bond is a role, not a man. Heck, other 00 agents have numbers. We don't hear their names, do we? So Bond might be the operational identity of all 00 agents.
Yeah,
That's what they think.
That doesn't work for me, because if that was the case, Alex Trevelyan and Silva make no sense. They're former agents, and they aren't called James Bond. To me, this line from Lazenby was just about the fact that he's a new actor playing the character James Bond, not a new character. I actually think 007 is the code name, not the name James Bond, because if we remember in No Time to Die, they reused that number by giving it to Nomi.
Sure, it's like reusing a jersey number in basketball or whatever. Yeah, you could reuse the number. You're not reusing the player. And here, we're not reusing the player either. So yeah, 00 agents, the concept of they never have other names. Yeah, they do. Alex Trevelyan and Silva, like you mentioned, were ex-00 agents. So, and they had names, and it wasn't James Bond. Now, George's line was a funny line, and supposedly it was ad-libbed. And he broke the fourth wall saying it to us, the viewers, but he could have been referring to any other agent in MI6 or elsewhere that he knew. So this is not really strong evidence of a code name at all.
Yeah, at all.
Right.
I mean, codename theorists also argue that, hey, MI6 would never keep one agent for 60 plus years. Be a pretty long in the tooth agent.
Yeah.
In universe logic, one man couldn't serve from the Cold War through post 9/11.
Right.
And a rotating Bond identity solves the timeline problem.
Yeah. Well, that is true. There probably is a forced retirement age for MI6 agents. In reality, intelligence agents might have special rules. Who knows? For example, in the UK, as a civil servant, at one time, you had to retire by the age of 65. And so the standard mandatory retirement age for a secret intelligence service MI6 officer was 65. The same for other UK government staff. While forced retirement at 65 was a standard, the sensitive nature of intelligence work means specific ongoing policies may not be fully public. But the trend is towards retaining expertise where they deem it vital or important to national security. So, for the Secret Service part of this, or the secret agent part of this, or the MI6 part of this, they may bend those rules.
Well, I don't know if you saw this on Netflix, Dan. There's a show on Netflix called The Thursday Murder Club, and if you haven't seen it, it's a really good thing. Helen Mirren's in it. She plays a retired MI6 director.
Okay.
Pierce Brosnan's in it too. Now, I believe she says she was forced to retire in one of the episodes. I don't remember exactly what it was, but there was the implication that she was forced to retire, kind of validating that the MI6 people do need to retire at some point.
Yeah, and they may. However, we're talking about a timeline here that continues to put James Bond, because Ian Fleming didn't write past his death, it would be hard. They keep putting James Bond into more current situations, and they write new stories about James Bond. So the fact that he couldn't have lasted 60 plus years in the service is a ridiculous argument.
One might even call it specious.
He's eternally 30s or 40s. That's what he is, except Roger Moore, who was 57 in his last one. All right. Like I'm saying, James Bond is an agent of his time period. Fleming wrote the novels from 1952 through 1964. He changed with the times over that short period, but he was always an agent of the time. So we could think of James Bond being perpetually in his 30s, no matter what year he is operational. From the 1950s to the 2000s and beyond, it doesn't make any difference at all. It's not a big stretch. All right. Another argument for James Bond being a code name is, hey, M, Q, and Moneypenny are clearly roles played by different people, but all in the same role. So if M and Q are titles, why not Bond? Multiple characters use the same code letters over time.
Those roles are of people in charge of something. I mean, they got letters. The agents got numerical designations, unless the double O is really the letter O and not the number 0, right? But in either case, it could be that the license to kill are 2 O's and not 2 zeros. You see it written both ways. But if it is numeric, that could be the designation between the agent, him or herself, versus the person in charge.
Yeah, the numbers are the numbers, and the names are the names. This is what we're talking about. Clearly, Moneypenny is an admin to M. That is a job. And yes, various women have played Moneypenny over the years, but she remains Moneypenny, who knows and is infatuated with Bond and is consistent. Yeah, both can be said to be code names if you want to argue this to the end, because, well, hey, Moneypenny represents the admin to M, but that is highly unlikely that Moneypenny would be a code name for an admin.
Yeah, that would be a stretch for me. I mean, I get where you're going with this, but I liken the character of Moneypenny to James Bond in that the actor has to change as they get aged out.
Yeah.
Felix Leiter's the same way. One character, different actors over the years.
Yeah, and also M and Q, they're played by various actors over the spread of 25 movies. So those are code names too. Well, maybe, but they are most likely the position. Like a CEO or a CFO or a VP of sales are for a company. They're filled by various people for the position. Same with M and Q. They get hired for that position. 007, on the other hand, is one of many agents in MI6 and one of a select 00 agent. So, are they all James Bond 001, James Bond 002, etc.? Or do the codename arguers say, no, it is James Bond 007, but it might be Bill Smith 001, etc.?
Well, I mean, that's a nice theory, but I'm going to bring you back based on evidence from the movies. Trevelyan's got a 00 number. Silva's got a 00 number. I mean, they're both 00s, but they aren't called James Bond.
No, they're not. And we don't see continuous different people playing their roles either. James Bond is the main character in the Ian Fleming stories, you want to go on into perpetuity with James Bond. And so you got to change actors for the character James Bond. So let's do some shout outs to listeners who gave us some feedback on recent episodes. And we love hearing from our listeners because we want to make this show the best it can be for you. So a big shout out to, and this one we really appreciate, to Kevin Rogers, who said, I have listened to the Julian Glover interview and most of your others. Love you guys. Thank you, Kevin. We appreciate that.
Thanks, Kevin.
And a shout out to Baldwin Collins and the Pietro Rossi, who gave us feedback on 2 different episodes this time, and Bernard Abels as well. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, we really do appreciate that feedback.
All right, back to James Bond, or whoever he is. All right, there are more compelling arguments to say that James Bond is, well, James Bond. Bond's personal history carries across actors. On Her Majesty's Secret Service, For Your Eyes Only, Moore's Bond visits Tracy's grave. We mentioned this directly links Moore to Lazenby's Bond, emotionally and historically. There is no argument you could come up with that would argue against that successfully.
I like the successfully you just added there.
In License to Kill, at Felix Leiter's house after Felix marries Della. Della tries to throw the bouquet to Bond when he was getting into his car. He caught it reluctantly, and Della does not understand why. She says,
Is there something wrong?
He was married once, but it was a long time ago.
yeah, again, tying a third actor playing James Bond to the same person, James Bond, and the history of Felix knowing this man. Bond was married once a long time ago. Yes, License to Kill, 1989. Bond was married in On Her Majesty's Secret Service, 1969, 20 years ago. Yeah, a long time.
Yeah, and he didn't age much between those movies because the actor changed.
Yeah, right.
All right,
That's
so
the way it goes.
that's the way. That's what we're talking about here. It's the character, not a code name. All right, so let's go back to On Her Majesty's Secret Service for a minute, because remember when Bond was ready to tender his resignation? We see him clearing out his drawer, and in it we get Honey Rider's knife from Dr. No, the Garrett watch from Russia with Love, the rebreather from Thunderball. I mean, what else do we need? This is showing us that this is James Bond, the person, not a code name.
And you could see Lazenby playing Bond there, reflecting as he was touching those items and cleaning out his desk, reflecting about those missions. He is James Bond. Now, other characters know Bond across multiple movies. Felix Leiter recognizes Bond across the movies. Felix consistently knows Bond and personally knows Bond. A rotating Bond would raise suspicion inside the CIA and MI6 cooperation mechanisms. How would they do that? The CIA would be saying, now, who's this guy? If he's it's a code name.
Especially since Leiter's played by rotating actors. Bond wouldn't recognize Leiter if this code name thing was real.
Yeah.
He has his legs mangled in License to Kill, yet he appears with unmangled legs in future Bond movies. So they're rotating Moneypenny, they're rotating Leiter, they're rotating James Bond. I'm noticing a trend.
Yeah, and Bond is personally known by villains. Blofeld knows Bond intimately across multiple movies. You Only Live Twice, On Her Majesty's Secret Service, Diamonds Are Forever, and that says a lot. And their rivalry is personal. And of course, don't forget Spectre and that whole thing with the half-brother stuff or whatever, the adopted. Oh
Let's try to forget that, because we already talked about the fact that he went to live with his aunt.
Again, it's a connection to a real person, though. That's the thing. That's the point there, although that whole story was ridiculous. And not.
Wait, you mean Purvis and Raid wrote something bad? I'm
yeah. And their rivalry is personal. It's not professional. Bond is vengeful for Tracy's death. Blofeld knows Bond killed Dr. No, and he's been a thorn in Blofeld's side for a long time. And so the whole From Russia with Love was a revenge to get Bond for killing Dr. No and Dr. No. Yeah.
Well, it's the same thing here with Blofeld, because the actor for Blofeld changes throughout the series as well. I mean, they rotate people through these roles.
Exactly. And who made all of these movies? Ian Productions. This is the Bond official canon of Bond movies. And at one time, producers Michael G. Wilson and Barbara Broccoli explicitly rejected the idea of the codename concept. Ian Productions treats Bond as one man, reinterpreted over time. That's the key. And we know in Ian Fleming novels, there is no hint that James Bond is a code name. In the novels, Bond has a clear, consistent biography. He was born in 1920, a naval commander background, no hint of identity transfer ever. He got amnesia in You Only Live Twice and didn't know who he was, but the he who did not know who he was Bond, not knowing he was Bond.
Yeah, because it was a cover name.
All right. It wasn't a code name.
But wait, is this something that could possibly have been the case in the Fleming novels?
Well, we learned a long time ago while examining the original Ian Fleming manuscript at Indiana University's Lilly Library that at one time Fleming thought of a cover name for James Bond. Now, the difference between a cover name and a code name, and people identify these as the same. They're not. A cover name is a false identity used publicly to conceal a spy's true allegiance and activities, while a code name is a word or a phrase used internally by intelligence agencies to refer to a person, project, or a location for secure communications. So, there you go.
Yeah, so the code name is the 00 designation. Think about in Thunderball when Leiter shows up at the door and Bond punches him in the stomach.
Fine way to treat the CIA.
Sorry about that, Felix, but you're just about to say 007.
That's exactly what we're talking about here.
Yeah. Now, I'll tell you a great story, and this is from Ian Fleming's niece, Kate Grimmond. She's the daughter of Ian's older brother, Peter. So, many years after Fleming's death, she detailed that her uncle's original idea was for James Bond to be the character's real name, while his cover name was initially going to be James Secretan. Secretan. In early drafts of Casino Royale, Fleming was going to use Secretan as a name when James Bond was on an assignment and among strangers. However, he crossed it out and used Bond instead, likely realizing, she said, that having the character use his real name to friends and a code name with others would cause confusion, mostly for the readers, we assume.
Yeah.
And so he stuck with Bond as the character's real name. So it never happened that he used a cover name, Secretan. Now, in examining his original type manuscripts, Tom, remember this, we saw firsthand how Fleming closed things out and forever changed things. In one manuscript, we saw where Fleming scratched out Pettival and penned in, ready? Moneypenny. Yeah, that is where it happened, right on the page that we had in our hands. Right there. Boom.
Yeah, now for me, this story by his niece where Fleming scratched out Secretan and just uses Bond is enough to debunk any and all code name theories, because it's even less compelling than to use a code name. And Fleming took away Bond's cover name. So James Bond's the name.
Yeah, right. A cover name is less compelling than a code name, like you just said. So, yeah, this blows the whole thing sky high. This is like blowing up Dr. Noselair. I mean, boom, it's gone. All right. And by the way, Kate Grimmond, with her sister Lucy Fleming, still controls Ian Fleming Publications, guiding the literary estate. Though company records show she resigned as an official director, the family continues to manage the rights to James Bond. And speaking of Fleming, here are things Fleming never did in his James Bond works. Fleming never has Bond say his name is false, never suggests multiple Bonds, never has another agent inherit James Bond, never treats the name as operational, never uses James Bond the way M or 007 is used.
Now you're sounding like Red Buttons, and he never got a dinner. if you remember
Nobody
that
knows what Red Buttons is.
from those old rows.
Mark Spitz once said, if you lead a horse to water, I'll race him. Wilkes Still Chamberlain, who said to his mother, how can you say I look down on you? Never got it.
All right, now, Even look at the Daniel Craig arc as James Bond, if you must. Personally, it's always bothered me that he has his own arc, and I know, Dan, you're in the same thought here. There should only be a James Bond arc.
Yes.
A James Bond arc.
Yes.
But anyways, he first appears as James Bond in Casino Royale, earning his 007 status when he makes his second kill of Dryden, the section chief. Dryden already knows of Bond and thinks he did not get his 00 status yet. So Bond existed before he got his 00 license to kill, and Dryden already knew it.
Yeah. And beyond that, Craig's arc as Bond shows him getting his 00 status as a young agent, continuing in Quantum of Solace and into Skyfall, getting older as an agent, and wanting to retire by the time Spectre comes around, retired in No Time to Die, and was older, and brought out of retirement and dying. And who is he all of this time?
Bond. James Bond.
Okay, I'm kicking a dead horse here. The code that exists are in the assigned numbers, not the name.
Yeah.
They can be moved from agent to agent, as we've seen.
And in the movies, this never happened in Fleming's novels. Some other 00 agents are mentioned or appear by name. Again, did not happen in the novels. The most famous one we remember is 006, Alex Trevelyan. We mentioned him in GoldenEye. And 002 is mentioned in dialogue only from The Man with the Golden Gun. He was killed in action. And he was named Bill Fairbanks. And of course, Nomi in No Time to Die, who holds the 007 number.
By the way, I'm not just any old 00. I'm 007.
Lastly, I want to talk about Renee Mathis.
This one's a good one because it gets a little confusing now. The waters are going to get muddied here.
Yeah. Now, in the novels, we want to say, he's introduced in Casino Royale, and he works as a senior agent for the 12e Bureau, the French intelligence. He's a facilitator, a liaison, not a field operative. He knows a lot of people, and he can get things done. And Fleming never talks about him having a code name in the books. He is a real man using his real name.
Okay, wait a minute. In the movie Quantum of Solace, there is some confusion whether Mathis is his real name, because remember that Mathis doesn't work for MI6.
Right.
So this wouldn't impact James Bond. But the dialogue here is a little confusing for what we're talking about.
Is Mathis your cover name?
Yes. Not a very good one, is it?
Now, Tom, pay attention to what we just played. Bond does not say code name. He says cover name. When Mathis says yes, the code name supporters say, see, Mathis had a code name. But no, he had a cover name. And it was his real name, Mathis. That was the joke. Bond's joke, that is not a very good joke, because it's Daniel Craig telling it. It means that Mathis used his real name as his cover name. A cover name really can be real or fake, but it exists to mask who you really work for, not who you are. It's to mask what you're doing. And so that's all the codename agent people. Hey, Mathis had a code name. No, he had a cover name.
Well, and you have to like Mathis in the movies. We get him in Casino Royale and again in Quantum of Solace.
Yeah,
played brilliantly by Giancarlo Giannini.
Yeah, he was terrific. And Bond did use cover names. So, hey, you want to talk about Bond using cover names? Yeah, he used cover names. Here's a couple of examples, right? In From Russia with Love, he uses a cover name along with Tanya on the fake passports, Mr. and Mrs. David Somerset. In The Spy Who Loved Me, he uses a cover name of R. Sterling, posing as a marine biologist. And there's more.
Well, yeah, even in my favorite movie, Die Another Day, he has a cover name as Mr. Van Burk.
Yeah, right. He's, impersonating that guy. Yeah. Now, he uses others as well in the movies as cover names, not code names. And importantly, the narrative always tells us when he does. This is the thing everyone needs to pay attention to. When James Bond uses a cover name, the narrative tells us every single time he's using a cover name. The name James Bond is never treated that way. James Bond regularly adopting cover names is fine. It only makes it clearer that James Bond itself is never one of them. So, we now know who James Bond is.
Bond. James Bond.
Always and forever. So that is a wrap and the final word on whether James Bond is a code name. All right. Remember to subscribe to our show, Cracking the Code of Spy Movies, in your favorite podcast app, and please leave us a review there too. That helps our podcast grow so we can do more for you. Thanks for spending time with us. Tom and I appreciate it.
Dan and Tom, are those cover names or code names?
I'll figure that one out. Take care, everybody.